Pretending to be asleep saved my life. I'm currently 19 years old, but this happened when I was 10, and it feels like it was just yesterday. It all started on a cold winter Saturday in the year 2013. In my family, we were always accustomed to going to bed early compared to other people. I felt embarrassed about it, so I lied to my friends about what time I went to sleep. For a few months, after my parents put me to bed, we'd stay awake for another hour or two, chatting with friends on WhatsApp or playing some popular games. Sometimes, my parents would get up to use the bathroom or go to the kitchen for a glass of water, and I needed to quickly turn off my phone and pretend to be asleep. On that night, I was playing a mobile app that I had been addicted to for a while called Kenneth. I don't know if you're familiar with it. I had been playing for several hours when I heard footsteps coming up the stairs. Strange, I thought. I don't remember hearing my parents going down to the kitchen. Since I was so engrossed in the game, I realized my mother had gone downstairs to get some water. You know that feeling when you can recognize family members by their footsteps? Well, the steps were somewhat heavy, even though they were trying to be quiet, as my mother often did. So I quickly assumed it was my mother, turned off the phone, and hid it under the blanket, pretending to be asleep. Just 1 or 2 seconds later, I saw the steps approach, taking advantage of the darkness. I opened my eyes and saw the silhouette of my mother approaching the room as she usually did. After a few long seconds, she returned to her room. I thought, great. I can play a little more. I listened when she opened the door to her room and went back to sleep. I had the habit of counting to 5 to make sure she couldn't see the light from my phone in her room when I hadn't heard the door close. 1234. As I was about to return to my gaming addiction, I heard loud, sharp knocks coming from my parents' room. This made me hesitate to turn my phone back on. They were loud and dry knocks. I didn't know what was going on, but I assumed it was something related to adult matters. My friends had mentioned such things, and I was curious to see what it was really like since they talked about it so much during recess. I decided to sneak a peek since the door wasn't closed. I got out of bed, moving as quietly as possible, and approached my parents' room, crouching and leaning against the door, hoping to catch a glimpse of something to report later. Please don't judge me. I vividly remember what I saw. I saw the shadow of a large woman with what appeared to be a knife striking what seemed to be 2 soft pillows. I was paralyzed watching and hearing those dry blows. Instantly, I knew they weren't pillows. They were my parents. I didn't cry or scream. I just took a deep breath. Nothing. I didn't even have the courage to let the air out of my lungs. I was completely frozen. My brain went into some kind of shock, and I snapped back to reality. I heard a voice in my head, something like, "Go back to your room now or you'll die." Without thinking, I obeyed. I returned to my room more cautiously than when I left. I had trouble breathing, and my heart was racing uncontrollably. I stared fixedly at one spot, not thinking about anything. Again, I was frozen. My brain went through another shock when I heard the blows stop. I shivered at that moment, thinking that pretending to be asleep was the best option. So I lay in bed making as little noise as possible and closed my eyes. I felt my heart beating rapidly, something I hadn't experienced since even during physical education classes. I could hear my heartbeat pounding in my head until I heard the footsteps again. At that moment, I felt my ears sharpen to try and determine the stranger's exact position. I realized he was coming toward my room. Even though I was facing away from the door, I didn't open my eyes, but I sensed that he was there standing in the doorway looking at me. I wanted to cry and scream, but I couldn't. My most primitive instincts were in control of my body at that moment. After long seconds of agony, I heard the steps going down the stairs. I didn't move. I didn't open my eyes. As I said before, I couldn't. I heard footsteps downstairs. And in less than a minute, I heard them coming back up the stairs. But this time, they were slower. I couldn't understand why I thought they were coming from the living room based on the footsteps I heard. Then I quickly realized that she was inside my room, not at the door. I heard the footsteps behind me. I knew she was just a few steps away. I felt her presence in her breath, which was a bit fast but calm. I noticed that she left the room and went to my parents' room. Then she turned, and this time, I felt her breath stronger as if she was hissing.